I want you to take a walk with me. It's nothing like a walk on a brisk fall day through the neighborhood. But while we're walking, we're going to pay attention to what we see. We're passing a long strip of dilapidated shotgun houses. What do you notice about those houses? They're old, many are unkept. Why do you think that is? Did you count the amount of vacant lots we passed? What could have been there? A park or some affordable housing? Let's not get distracted. We still have not passed the poor performing school or the corner store that's notorious for the loitering outside and never having grocery essentials like milk or bread. But it's always overstocked with alcohol and tobacco products. Look at the nice lady on the corner living out her life's trauma through addiction and prostitution. Let's keep walking. We're almost to our destination. Who do we see but a well-meaning family, a father, a mother, several children, trying to live out this nation's bedrock of success through home ownership? But how do they do that on the corner in a neighborhood so riddled with dysfunction? How can they contribute? What can they do? How can they be a part of sustainability and revitalization in a community so ravished with trauma? This is my story, and the story of so many other community leaders across this nation. And it starts with one question: am I the one to affect change? And the answer is yes, you are. See, so many people understand what community revitalization is, but not many people understand how to do community revitalization. My story started as I attended a neighborhood leadership academy here in Tallahassee. And they talked a lot about sustainability, mostly related to ecosystems and environment. And I began to think about sustainability a little bit different as it related to my community. And I wondered, how could I, my family, my children, be a part of the sustainability in my community? What could we do? How different could the community look if there were more two-parent households? More men like my father playing street ball with the kids, or mothers like myself volunteering at the school or serving on community boards? How would it look? Would our walk through the community look different? I want to believe that it would look different. My husband and I purchased our home as newlyweds, and the plan was to live there for 3 years and to eventually turn it into an investment property. What we didn't bank on was that the children would keep coming and that the economy would crash. So there was no moving, especially on a teacher's salary. I began to think about sustainability a lot differently. And I wanted to know how, in a community like the one I'm living in, now choosing to stay in, how do we reflect change? And what my approach was to connect home, school, and community. It was a three-pronged approach. In my community, our schools are the centerpiece of our neighborhood. So I figured if I went into the schools, I would reach the majority of the families. The connection of home, school, and community, the thought behind it was that if you have strong homes and families, you have strong children entering those schools, and strong schools equal strong communities. The school would be my thermometer for what was happening in the community. I jumped right in, very excited to get involved, and quickly discovered that the school was low performing. Not because of lack of good educators or efforts by the school administrators, but because the families in the community were suffering. I also quickly realized that the children were only 26% proficient at literacy. That was sad. Something had to be done about it. And so I created the Leaping for Literacy program that incentivized students for meeting their reading goals. At the end of the 9 weeks, the students that had met their reading goals were allowed to leap for cash. The funds were raised by asking other grassroots leaders and businesses that were in the shadow of the school. It was a great success. But the ultimate goal of the program was not to just give children money, but it was to provide financial leadership training for their parents and give them opportunities for youth entrepreneurship training. There was a lot happening. There was a lot to do. The connection between school, work, and home was hard work. As I began to walk through this thing, I realized that there was a negative perception of my community. And how do I change the perception of an entire community with little to no resources? What you do is you build and you leverage relationships. My community, like many other communities and impacted and impoverished communities around this nation, was one that had been surveyed and studied and reviewed by many institutions and public health agencies here in this city. And so what I decided to do was align the neighborhood's priorities with their priorities to gain access to their resources. From that connection, the first annual Community Walk and Family Health Day was born. That event, while still partnering with the school, gave the school an opportunity to engage with the community in a way, not in asking for a handout, but in a more productive way. It allowed the community to come into the school and see what an asset it was. And the underlying reason, the true reason for the Community Walk and Family Health Day was to give those outside of our community who never made it to that side of town an opportunity to come in, get involved, become intrigued by what was happening, and to be moved to action. And guess what? It worked. I don't want to move too far away from the connection of strong homes, schools, and communities. I told you about the Leaping for Literacy and the Community Walk and Family Health Day. Those were ways to allow people to get involved, to change the perception of the community. As we begin to work, the city of Tallahassee became partners with us. They began to provide opportunities for engagement and education. They encouraged us to continue to work in and for our own communities. As a result of these connections and from leveraging partnerships and relationships, residents along with other stakeholders got together and created a plan that had 4 priorities. Those 4 priorities were public safety, beautification, economic development, and land use. All priorities and issues dealing with the blight and disinvestment we saw on the walk we took a little bit earlier. We put together that plan and presented that plan to our city commission and was awarded $6.4 million. It's the largest ever investment in a Southside community in this city. That couldn't happen without empowerment of grassroots leaders, connection and collaboration with local government and community-based organizations, as well as resources. No community like mine can do anything without resources. The $6.4 million was awesome. And it's going to allow us to do community revitalization. But what I ask myself time and time again is, how do we continue beyond ourselves to empower other grassroots leaders, to continue after we're done with our $6.4 million, go back and continue to connect and leverage the connections and partnerships with local government and community-based organizations and keep the resources flowing into our community. I'm learning, and I admonish you to know that community revitalization is not done to you, it's done by you. So what I want us to do is I want us to take another walk through the community. You remember the walk we took earlier, right? So now what do we see? Look at the park. There's fruit trees. I'm loving the paint on the new row of affordable housing. That store is no longer there. It's been repurposed into a village tech center, also housing a museum with the community's rich history for the children to enjoy. I don't see that woman on the corner anymore. She got a bed in a facility in the new multiplex up the street that also houses the grocery store that's selling fresh fruit and vegetables. These are all things that we can see and have in our community, but it starts with each one of us. Thank you.